The sun had just begun to dip behind the trees, painting the living room in shades of gold and amber. Emily moved quietly through the house, straightening cushions, picking up stray papers, and humming softly to herself. She liked this time of day when the house felt calm, almost like it was breathing with her. Yet, despite the peaceful atmosphere, she couldn't shake the sense that something was off. She had noticed it for a few days. Now her stepson, had been distant, quieter than usual. And there was an unusual heaviness in his eyes that tugged at her heart. She found him sitting on the couch, elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped tightly. The tension in his shoulders was unusual for him. Ryan was normally full of jokes, sarcasm, and easy laughter that filled the house. But tonight, he seemed small, almost invisible, as if the weight of the world was pressing down on him. Emily approached slowly, careful not to startle him. "Hey, Ryan," she said gently, sitting down beside him. "Is everything okay?" He didn't look at her at first, staring at the floor as if trying to sort through a storm of thoughts. When he finally lifted his eyes, they were tired, uncertain, and honest in a way that made Emily's chest tighten. I think I need your help," he said quietly, almost afraid to speak the words. Emily's heart jumped, not out of fear but a mixture of concern and instinctive protectiveness. She placed a hand over his shoulder, letting him know she was there. "Of course, honey. Tell me what's going on." He hesitated, biting his lip, his fingers tightening around each other. "It's just, I've never really handled certain things before. Life stuff, decisions, responsibilities, talking to people about things that matter. I feel lost, like I don't know how to act or what to do sometimes." Emily nodded slowly, listening carefully. She understood better than anyone that Ryan had grown up without much guidance at times. And now, stepping into adulthood, he was facing challenges he had never encountered before. "Ryan, that's completely normal. Nobody has it all figured out, and needing help doesn't mean you're weak. I'm glad you told me." He exhaled, relief passing over his face, but it was mixed with something else of vulnerability he rarely showed. Emily could see it in the way he avoided her gaze. At first, the small shift of his feet, the way his hands fidgeted, she realized this was more than a simple moment of uncertainty. He was opening up to her in a way that showed trust, something rare and precious. I don't want to mess up," he admitted, voice trembling slightly. "I feel like everyone expects me to know what to do, but I don't. I've never really been taught how to manage life." Emily took a deep breath, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. "Ryan, that's why I'm here. We'll take it step by step. You're not alone, and you don't have to figure everything out on your own. Life isn't about having all the answers immediately. It's about learning, making mistakes, and growing from them." Ryan nodded slowly, but Emily could see the uncertainty lingering. There was a hesitation in him that was deeper than just the ordinary struggles of a young adult. It was almost a fear of failure, of disappointing those around him. She thought about her own mistakes, her own moments of doubt when she had stepped into adulthood, and felt a wave of empathy for him. "Let's start small," she suggested, trying to make it easier. "What's one thing that's been bothering you lately? Something simple, something we can tackle together." Ryan hesitated again, then muttered, "I guess I don't know how to talk to people when it matters. Like expressing how I feel, asking for advice, handling responsibility. I just freeze or overthink and end up saying nothing." Emily smiled softly, gently squeezing his shoulder. "That's something we can work on. It's not something anyone masters overnight. We'll practice, and soon it will feel natural. The important part is that you're willing to learn and to be honest about what you need." He looked at her then, and for a brief moment, the walls he had built around himself seemed to fall. His expression was open, trusting, and oddly tender. Emily felt a rush of protectiveness mixed with an unfamiliar warmth in her chest. She quickly pushed the feeling away, reminding herself that she needed to focus on being his guide, his support, "I've always seen you as more capable than you give yourself credit for, Ryan," she said softly. "You have the heart, the mind, and the courage to handle life. You just need a little guidance and someone to believe in you." He smiled faintly, almost shyly, and Emily felt her heart lift. It was a small smile, but it carried relief, gratitude, and a spark of hope. "Thanks, Mom. I really needed to hear that. I I don't know what I'd do without you." The room was quiet for a moment, filled with unspoken words. Emily could feel the connection deepening between them, a bond built not just on family ties, but on trust, understanding, and shared vulnerability. She realized that this night would mark a shift. It's the beginning of a new chapter in their relationship, one where Ryan could lean on her, learn from her, and grow with her guidance. Over the next few days, Emily tried to gently help Ryan navigate the small challenges of his life. They started with practical things, organizing his schedule, planning how to approach decisions, even discussing how to communicate more openly with friends and colleagues. Emily noticed how quickly he began to respond to her guidance, how he started to carry himself with more confidence, how his laughter began to return, quiet at first, then stronger, more genuine. One afternoon, while they were going through his college applications and future plans, Ryan paused and looked at Emily seriously. "I don't think I'd be handling any of this without you. You make it seem easier. Like life isn't so overwhelming." Emily felt a warmth she hadn't expected, a mixture of pride, affection, and something she couldn't quite define. She smiled, trying to keep her emotions steady. "I'm glad I can help. You're learning quickly, Ryan. I'm proud of you." He looked away for a moment, a faint blush on his cheeks. I know I'm probably too old to still rely on someone like this, but I guess I needed it. I needed you." Emily's heart tightened. She wanted to tell him that he wasn't too old, that needing guidance was never shameful, that she was proud to be there for him, but also that their bond meant more to her than she was ready to admit. She nodded instead, letting her silence carry the weight of her emotions. The following evening, Emily found herself reflecting on the growing connection between them. It was subtle, almost imperceptible to an outsider, but she could feel at a mix of admiration, trust, and quiet intimacy. That was different from anything she had felt before. She reminded herself that her role was to support him, to guide him, and to protect the trust he had placed in her. She had to keep the balance, keep it healthy, and keep it safe. Yet, despite her determination, she couldn't ignore the flutter in her chest when Ryan laughed at a joke, the way his eyes met hers when he asked for advice, the softness in his voice when he spoke about his fears and hopes. Emily recognized that their relationship was evolving, deepening into something emotional, heartfelt, and rare, a bond built on respect, care, and understanding. That night, as she walked past his room, she heard him talking quietly to himself. She paused, listening without interrupting. He was practicing what she had taught him, trying to articulate his feelings, confront his uncertainties, and reassure himself that he could handle life. Emily smiled, feeling a quiet pride and satisfaction. She knew this was just the beginning of his journey, and she was honored to guide him at the same time. She couldn't shake the sense that this chapter of their lives, this tender, emotional connection, would challenge them both in ways neither could yet predict. There was a subtle tension, a gentle pull, an unspoken understanding that something important was developing between them. It wasn't romantic in the explicit sense, but it was intimate, deep, and profoundly emotional. Emily returned to the kitchen, trying to focus on her own thoughts, yet her mind kept drifting back to him. She thought about how vulnerable he had been, how much he trusted her, and how much he was growing before her eyes. She realized that helping him wasn't just about guidance. It was about connection, about nurturing someone's heart, and about discovering the unspoken bond that had quietly formed between them as she turned off the lights and prepared to rest. She knew that tomorrow would bring more challenges, more lessons, and more opportunities to guide Ryan. But she also knew that their relationship had reached a new depth, one built on trust, emotional honesty, and care. She felt a mix of hope, responsibility, and a quiet, unspoken warmth that made her heart ache in the best possible way. And somewhere in the stillness of the night, she sensed that Ryan was thinking the same, that he felt the bond, the connection, and the safety of having someone who truly understood him. Neither of them spoke it aloud yet, but both knew that their journey together had only just begun. The house was quiet, but in that quiet, Emily felt a promise of growth, understanding, and emotional closeness that would shape both of their lives. The night ended with a sense of anticipation, a soft, gentle hook that whispered of the challenges, lessons, and heartfelt moments that awaited them in the days to come. The following days brought a new rhythm to the house. Emily and Ryan had settled into a pattern, one that felt natural, comforting, and, at times, unexpectedly close. Mornings were spent with quiet conversation over breakfast, discussing the plans for the day, whether it was Ryan's college applications, a part-time job, or just figuring out his schedule. Emily had learned to balance guidance with patience, offering advice only when needed, letting Ryan find his own way while quietly supporting him. Ryan seemed to thrive in this structure. He smiled more often, laughed more freely, and even carried himself with a confidence that had been missing for months. But Emily noticed subtle and small gestures, lingering glances, the way he would pause near her when asking questions, or the slight warmth in his voice when he spoke directly to her. She reminded herself constantly that her role was to guide and protect him. Yet she couldn't deny that the connection between them had deepened in ways she hadn't anticipated. One late afternoon, Ryan approached her in the living room, holding a stack of papers nervously. "Mom, I need help with this project. I can't figure out where to start." Emily smiled gently, taking the papers from his hands. "Let's go through it together. We'll break it down into steps, and you'll see it's not as overwhelming as it seems." They sat side by side, going through the details. As Emily explained the process, she noticed how closely Ryan watched her, hanging on every word, not just listening but absorbing. He asked questions that revealed his genuine interest, not just in the project, but in understanding, in learning how to handle life better. At one point, their hands brushed lightly as she pointed to a line on the paper. Both froze for a moment. Emily looked up, catching his eyes. There was a pause, charged with something neither of them had named yet. She quickly looked away, refocusing on the papers, but the moment lingered in the room like a soft hum. Quiet but undeniable. "You're really good at explaining things," Ryan said quietly, almost as if testing the words before letting them out. Emily felt warmth in her chest. "You're learning quickly, Ryan. That's why it feels easy to guide you. You're willing to listen and try." He nodded, a shy smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I guess. I just never realized how much I needed guidance. I always thought I had to figure everything out alone." "That's a common misconception," Emily said softly. "We all need help sometimes. Learning to accept it doesn't make you weak, it makes you human, and it makes life more manageable." Ryan leaned back slightly, his eyes thoughtful. "I wish I'd realized that sooner. I think I'd be less stressed now if I had someone like you guiding me from the start." Emily's heart ached at his words. There was such sincerity, such vulnerability in his tone. She wanted to reach out, to reassure him, to tell him that it was never too late, that she was proud of him, and that he had always been capable, even if he hadn't believed it himself. She reached over and placed a hand briefly on his arm, a gesture of comfort, of connection. Ryan didn't pull away, and a small, almost imperceptible warmth passed between them, a silent acknowledgement of the bond forming. As the days progressed, Emily found herself observing Ryan in ways she hadn't before. She watched him handle small challenges, returning a phone call he had been nervous about, organizing his tasks efficiently, even expressing himself more confidently in conversations with others. Each small success filled her with pride, but also a complicated mix of emotions she couldn't entirely name. One evening, they sat on the porch, the sky a deep orange with the last light of the sun fading. Ryan had his notebook in hand, sketching ideas for a personal project. Emily sipped her tea, watching him. "You've grown so much in just a few weeks," she said quietly. He looked up, eyes meeting hers. "It's because of you, Mom. You made me realize I don't have to face life alone. I I feel like I can handle things now." Emily felt a lump in her throat. She wanted to tell him that he had inspired her as much as she had helped him, that his trust and openness had touched her heart in ways she hadn't expected. But she stayed silent, letting her smile convey what words could not. There was a pause between them, comfortable yet filled with unspoken tension. Ryan set down his notebook and leaned back, gazing at the sky. "I've been thinking about the future, about what I want to do, who I want to be. And I realize I want to do it with someone who believes in me. Someone like you." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She felt warmth, pride, and a stirring of feelings she had tried to suppress. She knew she had to remain careful to keep their connection healthy and appropriate. Yet the depth of their emotional bond was undeniable. "You're capable, Ryan. Don't forget that," she said softly. "You have the strength to face anything. I'll always be here to guide you, but it's your choices, your growth, that matter most." He nodded, absorbing her words, but she noticed the subtle longing in his gaze. It was not a childish attachment, it was admiration, trust, and an emotional closeness that had grown through shared moments, guidance, and mutual care. The next day brought another challenge. Ryan had a difficult conversation to have with a college advisor about an issue he had been avoiding. Emily walked him through what he could say, how to express himself clearly, and how to stay calm under pressure. When Ryan returned, he was nervous but triumphant. "I did it," he said breathlessly. "It wasn't perfect, but I handled it. I didn't freeze or panic." Emily hugged him lightly, pride shining in her eyes. "See? I told you, you're capable. You just needed someone to remind you of it." Ryan lingered in the hug longer than usual, and Emily felt the warmth of his trust and gratitude pressing gently against her heart. She reminded herself that these moments were about support and emotional growth. But the intensity of their bond was undeniable over the next week. Emily and Ryan continued to share moments of quiet intimacy, conversations over coffee, late night, discussions about dreams and fears, small gestures of comfort and reassurance. Each interaction strengthened their connection, making it deeper and more meaningful. There was a subtle tension, a gentle pull between them that neither acted on, but both felt keenly. It was emotional, not physical, a bond formed from trust, guidance, and unspoken admiration. One rainy evening, they found themselves sitting together in the living room, listening to the sound of raindrops tapping against the windows. Ryan looked at Emily, his expression serious yet vulnerable. "I don't know how to thank you for everything," he said. "You've changed how I see myself, how I handle life. I feel more capable than ever, but also more alive." Emily's chest tightened. She reached out instinctively, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "You've always had it in you, Ryan. You just needed to believe in yourself. And sometimes a little guidance helps with that." He smiled softly, his eyes glimmering with emotion. "I feel like I can trust you with everything now, even the things I can't tell anyone else." Emily felt a wave of emotion, pride, affection, care, and a quiet tenderness that ran deeper than she expected. She realized that guiding him had become more than just teaching him to handle life. It was about connection, emotional closeness, and a bond that neither of them had fully named yet. As the weeks passed, Ryan's confidence grew, not just in tasks, but in expressing himself. He would ask Emily for advice on personal matters, small dilemmas, and even life choices. Emily guided him patiently, offering wisdom without judgment, listening without criticism, and helping him find his own solutions. One afternoon, while reviewing a personal project Ryan had been working on, he paused and looked at her with a softness that made her heart flutter. "I feel like I can talk to you about anything, Mom. You make me feel safe, understood, and appreciated." Emily swallowed hard, feeling a mix of pride, warmth, and emotions she couldn't fully express. "That's because you are, Ryan. You deserve to be understood and appreciated. And you're learning to appreciate yourself, too." He nodded, but his gaze lingered, and Emily noticed a quiet longing in his eyes, a reflection of the emotional bond they shared. She quickly looked away, reminding herself that her role was to guide, not to cross boundaries. Even as she felt the depth of their connection grow stronger with each passing day. One night, as Emily was preparing dinner, Ryan came into the kitchen, hesitant but determined. "Mom, I want to thank you properly. Not just for helping me with life stuff, but for everything. For being there, believing in me, for caring." Emily paused, her heart swelling with emotion. She reached out, touching his shoulder lightly. "You don't have to thank me, Ryan. Watching you grow, seeing you become confident and capable, that's enough." He smiled, a mixture of gratitude and emotion. "It's not just enough, it's everything. And I hope I can always count on you." Emily's chest tightened. She wanted to say more, to tell him that she had always cared for him deeply, that this connection meant more than words could express. But she nodded, letting her voice remain calm, soft, and reassuring. "Always, Ryan. You can always count on me." The rain outside had stopped, leaving the air crisp and fresh. Inside, the house was filled with a quiet understanding, a bond that was emotional, heartfelt, and deeply human. Emily knew that Ryan's journey was only beginning, that life would continue to challenge him, and that her guidance would remain important.